purpose behind this is step one, playing God. And we explored a little bit last week about where this comes from. And for those that were not with us, we went back to Genesis. You want to find out where this is coming from, you got to go back to the beginning. I've said before that if you want to understand the purpose of Jesus, you go back to Genesis 1:1. And we spoke about the curse. See if this thing works. Test, test. That works.
That'll work better than you.
And how the serpent had deceived Eve. And when Eve was being deceived, she looked at the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that it was good for the eye, that it was good to eat, and that it was good for making one like God, knowing good and evil. And that's the key. Ever since then, it has been a nonstop struggle of all humans in playing God, controlling every little aspect of our lives. We went through the curse, talked about both the man and the woman, how they suffer under the curse, each individually. We talked about our self-image and how we want other people to see us. And we talked about how we deal with issues, finding fault. I brought one thing about Adam. God comes in the cool of the afternoon. He's walking through the garden, and Adam, where you at? Adam says, I was hiding. Him and his designer fig leaves. And he goes, why are you hiding? Because I was naked. Well, how do you know you're naked? You ate from the tree, didn't you? It was a woman. And it's the woman that you gave me. It's the woman. So God turns to Eve and says, what's up, Eve? And Eve said, no, it was the serpent. He made me do it. So 7,000 years ago, we have devil made me do it, and it's never stopped. And I say it literally, it's never stopped. Church after church after church after church. Beware that spirit of lust. Beware that spirit of pride. Beware that spirit. I don't need to worry about no spirits because it all lives inside me. Thank you, Adam and Eve. I am transgression incarnate. I am offense to God made flesh. And it is by the shed blood of my Savior that I am redeemed of that. It does not mean I don't still suffer under the weight of sin. We're going to be talking about that here. We also talked about dualism. Remember the idea that man being flesh and God being spirit are separated. That flesh is bad and spirit is good. So therefore, either you're in one of two camps. Either Jesus was not God, he was flesh and therefore bad, or he was God and he wasn't flesh and therefore could not satisfy the propitiation for all sin. Either way you go, the people that fall into that category, the Gnostics, that glommed onto that dualism belief structure, got it all twisted. But now we're going to be talking about the other side of the coin, the monism. Monism means a singularity, a single point. That man is just man. There is nothing more to him. This philosophy is permeating our churches as well. Now it's kind of hard to believe since the church is about the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, being indwelt with the Spirit. But the ideas that come out of monism, naturalism, are permeating our churches. Anybody ever hear of Maslow? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Abraham Maslow? He was a popular psychologist back in the 50s, and he came up with a hierarchy of needs. Now, this is all over psychology. Let me start off with quoting Maslow. As far as I know, we just don't have any intrinsic instincts for evil. Man is inherently good, contrary to everything the Bible states. Now, how does the Bible actually refer to man in his fallen state? Evil, born in sin, evil, dead, blind, deaf, lost, rebellious, haters of God, without hope, children of the devil, desperately wicked. These are all descriptions of man in his fallen state. And yet, look at what man says about man. Any bad thing that comes is just a result of your environment. And so he came up with this, where is it? This hierarchy of needs. Everything that you two are learning in school is built off of this platform. 2 decades ago, No Child Left Behind. Everybody remember that? No Child Left Behind. Nobody, no, you're not going to get an F. We're going to keep patching it anyway. Comes from this. Every child gets a trophy. Comes from this. So at the base of this is psychology. So we have to make people feel good about themselves, physiology, not psychology, physiology, that their breathing is good, their food is good, that they get plenty of sleep, that they have a home, that universal health care, all these things that we're fighting in our politics today, all has its base foundation in this pyramid. The next one up is safety. I have to feel safe in my house. I have to be secure in my body. See where that's led us today? A boy is a girl is a cat. I have to be secure in my desires. After that is love and belonging. All people deserve love. Oh, don't judge them too harshly. They just need to be loved, cherished for what they are. The cat man, who thinks he's a cat, believes he's a cat, demands that everybody else acts like he's a cat, who's currently right now working at the CSRA with our nuclear waste. Does that sound like a good idea? Oh, but he just needs to be loved. He needs a nurturing environment. No, he's insane. He is clinically insane. What is the clinical definition of insanity? Madam, I'm going to have to disagree. That is, I think it was Einstein that coined that. When a reporter asked him about one of his experiments, he kept repeating, one of the experiments that he was not going to repeat. And he said to the reporter, the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different results. No, I'm not doing this again. But the clinical definition of insanity is the inability to recognize reality for what reality is. If I look out at people, I can identify who you are. If I look at the sky, is the sky purple? If I look at somebody, a person, do they identify as a cat? I don't care. You're a person. If you tell me that you're a cat, you no longer accept reality for what reality is. You are insane. And now you're asking me. Let me show you how this goes into our work. The company's policy, the new company policy. You have to identify your pronouns. He, she, it, us, them, them, whatever pronouns they have. And so everybody's got their he, she, it, them, whatever it is after their name in parentheses. Okay, I'm not going to play this game. Oh no, 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 no! It's company policy. You see right there, you have to do it. You know, HR's, you have to do it. It's all inclusive because everybody needs to be secure in their work environment, knowing that they themselves are secure in what they are. Okay, it's all pointing back to this. Well, okay, fine. Look, I'll give my God-given pronouns. He, him. So there. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, by the way, Mr. Cashmere is no longer Mr. Cashmere. Mr. Cashmere is now Miss Cashmere. Okay. Oh, no, that's Mr. No, 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 no. You have to make him feel secure in who he is. Oh, all right. But that's Mr. No, it's Miss. No, yeah, it's Mr. No, according to our company policy, that is now Miss Casimir, and you have to address him as such. Otherwise, you are misgendering him, and we're going to have a conversation with you. Okay, all right, fine, Miss Casimir. Ooh, now they have you bearing false witness. Do you see how this is going? It hooks you and then drags you along so you have to participate in the deception because of this. There's no escaping it if you want to be part of that world. So once we get up to esteem, and then we get up to self-actualization, the pinnacle of the pyramid. Self-actualization is where I get to define my own morality. What is right and wrong? What is truth? Pilate asked that 2,000 years ago. But you need to find your own truth. And that is getting into the churches. It's creeping in one little lie at a time. And there's fish hooks being set into church people. And they're being dragged along one small little step at a time. So these are the reasons why this idea that man is inherently good and all he needs is conditions within his life to allow him to reach self-actualization to where he then can determine his own morality, his own ethics, his own sense of being, his own. And once he gets there, there's a lack of bias. No more prejudice. He's all accepting of everyone. I'm sorry. Not one person that I have ever met that even got close to that was accepting of anybody but themselves. It's all a lie, the entire thing. So when we start getting into monism, where man is just natural, this is where they try to take you. And that's why I pointed to the two Utes in the back of the room. I know I pointed at you, and you're like, what? Because this right here is very deceptive. And if you don't understand it, it sounds good. It sounds awesome. But it'll lead you down a very, very dark, dark path one day. And everything that you're being taught in school revolves around this. But this is where we have, and this is one thing I hear over and over and over again, because when society gets that fish hook into us, we now can act with impunity. I don't have to feel bad about what I do anymore because I'm finding my own truth. You shouldn't make me feel bad about what I did because I'm just trying to self-actualize. I'm trying to hurt anybody. How dare you? Get him, Greta. How dare you? All right, any thoughts of remorse? What about remorse? You sorry for anything? You don't have to be, because you can always just forgive yourself. Well, you have to learn how to forgive yourself. Well, then why do I need Christ? I know that y'all have heard this before. You just need to learn how to forgive yourself and move on. They say it to drunks and addicts all the time. I'm sorry. If I could forgive myself, then why do I need Christ? It's a psychological game. And that's what this is all about. If the world can get you to believe that this is real, that you are intrinsically good, that there is no evil found in you, and all you need is a right environment to keep going, then you can forgive yourself. You don't need any of this silliness. You don't need religion. Hitler, Stalin, Mao, they all said it. You don't need religion. Hitler put his own portrait after ripping the crucifix off the wall. Stalin just repurposed the buildings into schools and studios. Mao just burned them to the ground. So if I can get you to believe the lie, I've got you. And the churches are one of the primary instruments in getting into the people's mind. Is there any reason why any wonder why we should think that attendance in churches now is at record lows since the beginning of the United States? What about our two youngest among us? Once again, yeah, I'm picking on you. Out of those children that come out of our churches and go on to higher education, where they learn all about how to be good little citizens and proper people without God, 20% stay in the Lord. 20%. Now, we don't have all of America's children in our churches. Right now, it's only about 45-50% of America's children go to church on a regular basis. And of that 40 to 50 or 45 to 50% that still go to church, only 20 of them survive college. You wonder where this stuff is coming from? They're learning it here. The cute little lies. The greatest thing about you is you. You're so special. If everyone is so special, then that means everybody's just ordinary. Why don't we just start off with being ordinary? There's only one thing that makes you special, and that's the fact that Christ died for you. That's it. That's the only thing that made you special. Otherwise, you're just the same as everybody out there, right? Can we agree on that? So really, are we able to forgive ourselves? So Romans chapter 1, beginning in verse 18. And I think I might I'm going to go on another little tangent. No, not Nate. I want to show you three things. A lot of people come to this passage to say This is the description of what sin is, what sin can do. I'm going to show you three different things. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Weren't we just talking about that? This didn't just start, okay, abortion. Does anybody want to try to tell me that any of the 9 judges on the Supreme Court that allowed this atrocity in our country, do you think any of them does not know that murder is bad? And yet they allowed it anyway? Not just that they allowed it to the most innocent and the most vulnerable of us. Do you not think that they didn't know murder is probably not the best thing to have in your society? Ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who seek to suppress the truth. Going on in verse 19. For what can be known about God is plain to them because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and his divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made. You cannot deny his existence. Everything around us shows us that there is a creator, right? Kids, what are the 2 scientific models for the origin of all things? Random chance processes or intelligent design? Evolution, random chance, or God, creation, intelligent design. Those are the 2 scientific models. The origin for all things lands in one of those 2. That's the model, right? Which one are you taught? Taught evolution. Anybody taught creation? If you didn't go to a private school, you were taught evolution. That's just all it is. You guys are monkeys, overgrown monkeys. That's what it boils down to. So let me ask you this. If you are a product of a random chance process, right? At just the right time, at just the right barometric pressure, with just the right temperature, and a little bit of lightning, and now we have an amino acid. And then a couple million years later, because that amino acid is like really resilient, at just the right time, and just the right pressure, and barometric pressure, and just the right amount of goo, and a little bit of lightning, now we have a little amoeba. And then a couple million years later, at just the right time, just the right place, and a little bit of barometric pressure, we add a little bit extra water and a bolt of lightning, and now we have, two-celled critter. We have a mollusk. And at just the right time, at just the right, so all these random chance processes, millions and millions and millions of years, goes from goo to fish, salamander, squirrel, monkey, truck driver. There we go, evolution of man. Now, if you're just a product of random chance processes, that's all you are, then your brain likewise operates off of random chance processes. So how can you even be sure that you're thinking what it is that you're thinking now? Because it's all just random chance processes. We know that this is not true. I know what I think. I think, therefore I am. I know that I am Nate. How do I know that? Because I know my mom named me Nate. Why? Because it's on my birth certificate. I know these things. This isn't just random chance. It is inherent. God's power and his glory is inherent in everything that I see. Go out into the forest and tell me, I dare you, show me one evidence of evolution. Some random chance. You know what the mathematical probability is for a single evolutionary change in an organism? 1. 2 times 6 to the 20, or 2 times 10 to the 27th power. Or is it 23rd power? 2 times 10 to the 23rd power. Well, let's say we'll go with the lower number, 23rd power. That's more stars than we've counted in the sky. And that's for a single evolutionary change. How many years do you think it takes for that one single change to happen? More years than they have counted on since the Big Bang. Okay, so that's one. Now let's take a look at the flagellum bacteria. Everybody know what the flagellum bacteria is? Kind of a long sausage-looking thing. It's got a little tail that spins. You've seen those? They float around your water. And you drink it. Yummy. That's a good. It's good. Right? Flagellum bacteria. You know how many parts are in the motor to make the flagellum spin? 7. There's 7 separate parts to the flagellum bacteria to make that little flagellum spin so he can float around in her Dr. Pepper. What? I'm sorry, the water. Right? 7 parts. Not only do they have to evolve 2 times 10 to the 26th or 23rd power, I think it's 26th power, but I'm going to say lower. I'm going to go lower, 23rd power. For one evolutionary change, but then it has to happen in order. Each individual little piece of that motor has to be in order for that little propeller to work. Get one of those pieces out of order, oops, scrap the whole thing, we got to start over. Another 227 trillion years before we make another part to this motor. You see how ridiculous this idea is, and yet is being peddled to our children as if it's fact. Yes.
Evolution is we evolved from monkeys. We evolved from monkeys.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a completely valid point. But the evolutionist is going to say, well, the squirrel never stopped evolving into a monkey, so we have this constant progression of squirrels to monkeys to truck drivers. Yeah, I mean to people. So the problem is we don't see that anywhere in the natural world. We don't see this. There's no progression at all. We don't even see it in the fossil record. Darwin himself said the one thing that will destroy my theory is the fossil record. If you can't find the missing link, which is why they spent over 150 years trying to find the missing link, because without the missing link, everything falls flat. The other problem is they have to keep changing the theory of evolution over and over and over and over again because they keep finding more data that points to what? God. Yes.
To point out when Miss Dawn and you were saying about evolution and everything, and the monkeys, I don't believe that either. But like she was saying that if evolution was linked to monkeys, why they're still around, I believe that that was true. The monkeys would be gone and extinct like the dinosaurs. It's also proved remotely that evolution is a big fat rat face lie.
Evolution is what?
Big rat face lie.
And I would have to agree with you. I agree with all points that you just said. But that's what we're fighting against. At the core of this whole thing is that man is just a product of his environment. All I have to do is make sure that there's no flagellum bacteria in your Dr. Pepper, and you can start climbing the pyramid to self-actualization. And that's where the lie starts. And they get them in school, and they keep teaching and keep training and keep pushing until finally when they get their claws into them at the university, oh, the fight's on.
So that if scientists would realize everything that God stands for in creation, scientific creation brings up to us, we'd probably have a lot better environment. I think scientists are largely.
Say that last part again.
I think the scientists have a big part of why they believe that evolution is real. God's saying.
Well, yes. Yeah, I mean, you can't. This isn't really a talk of pollution. I don't want to get into it, but you're correct. Scientists, quote unquote scientists. Here's the thing. Remember how I believe I said it. Who here likes Big Macs? Who here likes Whoppers? Did I do that here? Huh? You're a Big Mac guy? You're a Whopper? Oh man. All right, we're gonna go out in the parking lot. We're just gonna settle this right here. Okay, Dodge. Say Dodge. Ford, Chevy. I mean, we have these biases. Scientists are absolutely no different. They have biases. And when I look at this little puddle of goo and I say, wow, that's a beautiful example of evolution. Well, that's my bias. If I take the goo and I throw it down and I say, well, that's just goo. Let me take it apart, figure out what this thing is. Well, there's a lot of animal matter in here. Let me figure out the data. Oh, okay, there's a squirrel hair in here. Okay, we got that. And there's a lot of neat stuff that's going on in here, but it doesn't fit into any model. Either one of them. Because can evolutionists explain the Big Bang? Nope. Can creationists explain let there be light? Nope. We can't. It's a supernatural event. I can't explain it. God says it. I trust God to be truthful with me. Man, I cannot trust man to be truthful with me. So if he says I come from monkey, really? So you're absolutely correct. Scientists carry with them a bias, and they carry with them paradigms of what they learned in college and what they're taught to regurgitate in the workforce. Well, the Bible does say that at the end times, that knowledge will abound, but the world will lack in wisdom. Anyways, so continuing on. For his invisible powers, okay, for his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. Although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or gave thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. Right? Scientists, professors, and name me an economics professor that's ever run a business. But they're teaching us how to be good little businessmen. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for the image resembling mortal man, and birds and animals and creeping things. Now, do we sit down and worship these things? We talked about this a little bit yesterday. I don't worship this. This is just a representation of what happened on a hill 2,000 years ago. I worship God. I worship his son, Yeshua, Jesus. I worship the Holy Spirit. It is a three-part divine creature. His spirit within me, his son who redeemed me, and the Father who has adopted me into his family. That's who I worship. I don't worship this. But back in the day, and if you go into a Catholic church, I said I was going to beat up on Catholics, didn't I? If you go into a Catholic church, who are they praying to? Mary, saints, angels. Every instance of an angel that I've read, the book says, do not bow to me. Do not worship me. And yet you have Christians doing exactly that. That's idolatry. So we have these things. I'm going to go on. Therefore, God gave them over to the lusts of their heart. Okay, understand this. Therefore, God gave them over to the lust of their heart, to impurity, and to dishonoring their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever and ever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them up for dishonorable passions. Now we're in number 2. Therefore, God gave them up to the lusts of their hearts. Number 1. We now are jumping into number 2. For this reason, God gave them up up to dishonorable passions. For the women exchange natural relations for those that are contrary to nature, and men likewise give up the natural relations with women and are consumed with their passions for one another, men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty of error. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, number 3, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not be done. What we have here is not just a definition of sin. What we have here is a 3-step part of how God abandons a people. You do this, this happens. You do this, this happens. You do this, and there we go. Hands off, your empire falls. Where do you think we are? Where is our society in this? We're in number 3, firmly entrenched in number 3, and we don't want to move out of it. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them over to a debased mind to do what ought not be done. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They're full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Although they knew God, God's righteous decree was that those who practice these things deserve to die. Where do you think we are? That list right there is in every aspect of our society, from the pillars of our government to the streets of our slums. It's everywhere. Where are we at? God bless America. God have mercy on America. And as I said on Saturday, we got a job to do. We need to start getting busy because it's only a matter of TikToks. Every nation, every empire that has ever followed this plan, whether it was Israel or Judah, Babylon, Greece, Egypt, they all followed this when you look at the historical record. Rome, right before Rome fell, what were the women of Rome doing? Running around without their tunics with a sharpened broomstick, stabbing at the pigs that were running through the streets of Rome, because they're the great mighty hunters and they can do it just like a man can. Where are we at? What are we telling our children? What are we allowing people to tell our children? See, all of this stuff that I'm talking about here, this idea that we can play God, that we can shape our society, that I can self-actualize and develop my own morality, all of it's a lie because it feeds my desire to play God, just as Eve did all those years ago, because it would make me like God. And we have spent every waking moment of our lives from then until now trying to control the other person, the environment, what the preacher says on a Sunday morning. Soft words, careful little words. You know what? I may not even talk to the preacher. I'm going to go talk to the elders. I'm going to go talk to the deacons and just whisper in their ear. Put those little things in there. Oh, did you read this book? This is a really good book. And the lies start creeping in. Oh, Bible studies. Oh, you know what? Bible studies are really. Let me go get this book on The Secret. Anybody familiar with The Secret? The law of attraction. Just think happy thoughts and good things happen to you. That's occultism, is what that is. It comes out of the New Thought movement. that was founded back in the 1880s. And from that came Scientology. I don't think anyone's going to argue for Scientology here. But also came out of that Abraham Maslow. It's all the same stuff. And yet the secret was sold in Christian bookstores, telling people how they can be like God. Think things into existence. Speak them. I sat there and listened to one wife of a prominent pastor, sat there and actually said, you know what? I just looked at my husband and he spoke to the tornado and said, I rebuke you. And the tornado just went right back up in the clouds. Not 2 sentences later, she said, but we never fly in bad weather. Why not? If you can just speak things into existence, why are you worried about bad weather? Because she's a liar. We are not God. We're not little g gods. We are subject to a God. And that brings me to however many, wherever I am in the notes, I don't even know. There is a process. When we start trying to control our lives and the people around us, it's impossible to do it. One of the key steps is fear. We begin to fear things that we can't control. That's kind of a natural thing. So as we're fearing these things that we can't control, we start putting ourselves in the place of the accuser. Well, you're bad because, and you didn't do what you were supposed to do, and I failed because you, and you, don't look at me like that. I know it was you. We start pointing fingers, just like Adam and Eve did, because it's a pushing off of responsibility. It ain't my fault. I didn't do it. But fear starts putting us in that position. After fear comes the frustration, because generally people don't respond well to being pointed at. I mean, look at the Civil War. Through the whole 1850s, we're sitting there talking about ending slavery on an economic basis. Everybody can talk dollars. But the instant the abolitionists started pointing that high-powered finger of morality at them, whoa, 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 who do you think you are? Talks broke down. See, Brazil, they were doing the same thing. They ended slavery on an economic basis, not a shot fired. An integration of a workforce, and they became one of the powerhouses of South America. But what do? We start killing each other. Why? Because pointing fingers, I'm going to point all 4 of them at you. After a while, the frustration starts to set in, and especially among believers. It's frustrating having to turn the cheek over and over and over. Lord, why do I have to put up with this? Why do I have... Again, the 11th commandment, which is, thou shalt be nice. Do not cause offense. Don't make anybody uncomfortable. Thou shalt be nice. But how many times do I have to let you railroad me? How many times do I have to sit there and take it? How many times, dear Lord, do I have to put up with this? It's frustrating, especially as a believer. And then trying to fight my own sinful impulses. Lord, please take this away from me. The thorn in Paul's side he talks about. But he was never relieved of that thorn. So do we understand what it is that's happening within our own spiritual self? Let alone what's going on around us. That's frustrating. After the frustration comes fatigue. Actually, one more point about frustration. Cindy, what did we hit on Saturday? Conscience. Everybody says conscience is going to guide you. Conscience is going to tell you if you're doing right or wrong. Sinners got a conscience. Unbelievers got a conscience. What we have is conviction. The Holy Spirit poking me, that's something different than a nudge somewhere. Saying, hey, don't put your hand in the Oreos. You know Daddy's going to get you. No, the conviction is you're stealing. A little bit different than what the unbelievers experience. After that comes the fatigue. And fatigue breeds anger. And that's the dangerous spot to find yourself in. Because once you get to that fatigue and that anger, now I'm either overtly or covertly sinning. Sin of omission and commission. I just refuse to do the right thing. That's omission. Or I actively seek to work against the precepts of God. That's overtly, covertly, right? When I get angry, what am I serving? My own desire. When I'm serving my own desire, what am I doing? Playing God. Everything runs full circle. It starts by playing God, and I start traveling down this road of fear, frustration, fatigue, anger, and now I'm right back in the position of trying to play God again, or still. So I'm going to offer this to you. Actually, that's not it. As I started off yesterday, and I'm over time again, I apologize, Pastor. It's